Tonight, a one-time Grand Rapids Police Officer of the Year is giving Target 8 a rare insight into the stress of that job and how it can derail a promising career. 24 Auburn News 8's Joe LaFergie sat down with a retired police officer to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder among police officers and what happens when it's not treated.
For Gene Tobin, the dream became a reality in 1998 when the kid from Hudsonville put on a Grand Rapids police uniform.
Long-time dream, especially Grand Rapids, a large agency.
What happened over the next decade is a story of dedication, failure, redemption, and realization. We rode along with Gene Tobin in the early days, reporting on the traffic effects of the S-curve closing in 2000. Like so many young officers, he grew to love the job and learn how to do it better. Then came the crack of his cruiser radio in the early morning hours of July 8, 2007.
A call goes out of a man with a gun. A common call in Grand Rapids, very common.
But in police work, common can suddenly become a nightmare. Another responding officer was not answering his radio. Tobin and other officers found a broken garage window at the back of the home on Emerald Northeast and saw Officer Robert Bobby Kozminski on the ground. He'd been shot. Tobin and 3 other officers risked their lives pulling Kozminski from the backyard. The suspect, Jeffrey Van Vels, was later convicted of ambushing Kozminski.
I will never forget it. Never. And I think from that point on, the game changed for me as a police officer. And the game definitely changed for me as a person.
And drastically. Tobin says he withdrew, began drinking. His 10-year marriage fell apart. He used up all of his sick and vacation time that year. There was help available through the department. Tobin went to 1 session, but none after that.
I didn't see the warning signs that there was something going on.
Eventually, he began feeling better. After his divorce, Tobin poured himself into his work. Remember Troy Brake? He's the man convicted of killing 4 people in an Ottawa County home in the fall of 2008. Tobin was on patrol late one night and caught Brake beating a woman.
Put that down, drop it.
That arrest broke the murder case wide open. Career-wise, it was turning out to be a good year for Tobin.
It was like people were jumping into the back of my car to get in the back seat and to tell me things that had happened.
Tobin's fellow officers named him GRPD's Officer of the Year for 2008. But he had fooled himself and others into thinking he was all right. And it would all bubble to the surface shortly after another heartbreaking radio call. It was July 7, 2011, 4 years minus 1 day after Bobby Kozminski was murdered. This time it was a veteran officer on the radio looking through a doorway at a home on Plainfield Avenue.
I've got 3 Ks here, meaning there's three murder victims. And you could hear it in his voice. And I knew with the amount of experience he had that what he had just witnessed had to have been awful.
Officers were just learning of the violence Roderick Dantzler was inflicting on the community. By the end of that day, 7 people would die at the hands of Dantzler, who eventually shot himself. Tobin and other officers arrived at the home on Plainfield. Not knowing Dantzler's whereabouts, they cautiously entered the home, where the bodies of Dantzler's one-time girlfriend, Kimberly Emkins, her sister, Amanda Emkins, and Amanda's 10-year-old daughter, Marissa, were on the floor. For Tobin, that flood of emotions from 4 years prior returned.
It was the same feeling. It was immediately right there. The same, that smell and vision of horrific violent death.
Just like the day he helped carry Bobby Kozminski from the backyard on Emerald Street, Tobin and his fellow officers had to push emotions aside and do their job. For Tobin, the accumulative effect was too much. The symptoms surfaced a short time later during a day off as he lay on his couch at home. The neighborhood tornado siren went off.
And I began to cry. I began feeling very anxious and crying, and I didn't know why.
Tobin finally got the help he needed. It was too late for his career. He eventually retired on disability. He's at peace now, living on a Berry County lake with his new wife and child. He rents boats for a living. But he also wonders if things would have been different if he'd just got the help he'd been offered sooner.
If I would have just went, sat down and talked to somebody, perhaps this could all went differently.
In Gun Lake, Joe LaFurgie, 24 Hour News 8.
Coming up at 6 o'clock, hear how widespread the problem of PTSD is among officers and what's being done to deal with it.